Yeah, I was asking about this the last couple of days, and I wasn't really looking for it, but kind of was, but not in this situation because it's gonna be a good fight. I'm glad this fight is happening between Boots and Stanionis. I think this is a very good fight, but hearing this was shocking because I was gonna expect him to make more, but probably less. Yeah, this is shocking to me in a lot of ways, but not really. I'm gonna say this before I get to go into what I need to talk about. This isn't shocking to me because, and I'm gonna give you a reason why. Boots Ennis went out of his way to make this Stanionis fight because he want to be undisputed. So he ain't running from no smoke. In a lot of other situations, Stanionis did want the fight, but he wanted to fight. If I had to say, he didn't want the fight as bad as Boots wanted to fight. I'm gonna say that before I get into what I need to say. I think Boots wanted to fight more than Stanionis did. That's why the deal was done the way it was. Do I think Boots is ducking any smoke? No, I don't think so. No, I don't think he ducking no smoke. Me personally. Before I say anything else, I'm gonna just say that before I say anything else. So if anybody misses that part, then they won't know my whole outlook on everything. But this is a big fight happening, man. Very good fight. Very big fight. I'm glad this is happening right now, especially at 147. Didn't look too good last year. But I wasn't gonna be on here long, so I wanted to talk about what I just came across when it pertains to Boots Ennis and Stanionis. Now, they're saying that Stanionis is making more than Boots. This is told from Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn said this. And I was reading some articles and everything yesterday. They were saying Boots was making more than Stanionis. But all those were just estimations. Um, Based off of previous fights. So I knew those was lies. I looked at it, they was like Stanionis 1.8, Boots 2.5. Does this matter? Do I care about the money like that? Absolutely not. The reason why I'm bringing it up right now though is because um now and later on people will say stuff about Brian Norman Jr. and the fight between him and Boots, can it happen and why it didn't happen. And I was telling people Stanionis was requesting the same thing he was requesting. You know, fight outside of Philadelphia and more money. And Stanionis got both of those. What's going on, Verano? Yeah, yeah, that's the crazy part, Verano. The crazy part is the stuff that Eddie says. That's the crazy part. Watch it. Wait until you hear what Eddie says. Eddie said, "Where is it at? Let me find it real quick." Cause where is it at? Yeah, he said he deserves it. He deserves it. He's making more money than Boots. But as he said though, Boots took less money to make this fight happen. So I can just say hypothetically, Stanionis was a little more money hungry. But, Boots Ennis already knew, okay, we're to the point now where I'm at 47. Stanionis wants this. I'll just make that happen. But, man, yeah, that's kind of wild. They've been in talks for a while, though, so I'm not surprised. They've been in talks probably since last summer, probably. But, yeah, that's surprising to me. Stanionis getting more money than him? He said, what do you think of the Raymond Ford fight? I think Raymond Ford going to come to fight. I think it's going to be a good fight. Might should be like a late stoppage. I don't think Matisse got enough rounds in the last fight. He fought good, but I don't think he got enough rounds. And he's gonna try to brawl a little bit more than he's gonna try to box. So I think Ray Ford might come out and get a late stoppage. Possibly, but it ain't gonna come easy, so it could go 12. It could go 12. But he just fought recently. He looked good at that weight. Look a little stronger. I could say a late stoppage. But this is it's not surprising to me because, well, I'm gonna tell you what is surprising. The fact that Stanionis is making more money than Boots. The optics of that is bad. That looks bad. That looks bad. He's making more than him. Cause you gotta realize they say on paper, a lot of times these numbers be wrong. But because they talking about Boots making more than Stanionis on a lot of websites. But Eddie Hearn's saying right here, nah, Stanionis is making more. And that PBC was gonna go ahead and just make the mandatory with Stanionis and Giazov. So they said, you know what? And then Boots said, you know what? I'll just give him the extra money. Go ahead and make it happen. I'll get it out the way. 9 times out of 10, they're gonna try to make Brian Norman Jr. fight next. Hopefully. You got to after doing this. After doing this gotta be this gonna be Stanionis' biggest payday to this day. Unless he goes out here and get a surprise win, this gonna be the biggest payday he'll get. This will be the biggest payday he'll get. And PBC was willing to walk away from the deal that they got the first time. I guess whatever they gave Brian Norman Jr., they gave Stanionis. And they was like, nah, we ain't taking that. They like, we can just make a fight with Barrios. We already got a belt on this side, so. I don't know. But if I'm Ennis, do I do that as far as give him the money and just make the fight? Yeah, absolutely. Because that's why I'm there. So I'm not going to say too much on his part, but I'm just going to say as far as publicly, as far as everyone knows, because I've been hearing people say that, oh, why Norman didn't take this much money? He ain't getting as much as Stanionis getting. He wasn't going to get that much. He definitely wasn't going to make more than Boots. So, yeah, that fight could have got made, man. It definitely could have got made. So the fact that people said he was ducking because he wanted more money, no, technically Stanionis is ducking. Yeah, he know he gonna whoop me. Technically Stanionis was ducking. According to everybody else's, yeah, he gonna get him easy. I don't know, man. It depends. Stanionis look like he's solid though. He might match up well with Boots. I think Boots gonna win, but I don't know. It could be a surprise, man. Depending on how they match up. Stanionis look a lot more solid at the weigh-in than I thought he was. I didn't think Boots was as drained as people said he was, though. I pay attention to the weigh-ins very well. I know when somebody is probably drained. He's not as drained as he was probably 2 fights ago. He good. People just paying attention a lot more to Boots weigh-ins now, but because of the weight is a question. But I think during the David Avenesian fight, I think that weight cut was worse than this one. This weight cut he had was good. That David Avenesian weight cut, that's the one when I was surprised nobody said nothing about. I was like, oh, ain't nobody said nothing about that? That's why the next fight, that's when Boots said something about his weight after the Avenesian fight. But as far as his weight cut in this one, he look like he's doing well as far as that weight cut. Of course, you're gonna look skinny, obviously. When you start going for undisputed, I'll tell everybody a secret. Everybody who goes for undisputed start looking skinny. That's because you at the same weight class for years. But yeah, Eddie Hearn said Stanionis won the lottery. It took less money to make this fight happen. So Boots had to take less money to make this fight happen. So that's a good thing on him, as far as on his part. He should be commended for that. But I would say, as far as people saying Brian Norman Jr. is ducking, nah, he actually took less than everybody else did. He took less than Barrios, and I'm gonna tell you right now, no disrespect. And if anybody knows me, Mario Barrios has been one of my favorite fighters for a long time. The only thing Barrios has done recently is a good Maidana fight, but he got hurt in that fight. He got hurt in the Abel Ramos fight. In the Ugas fight, yeah, he did a good job in that fight. But against Keith Thurman, got beat bad against him. And Keith Thurman was out for a long time after losing to Pacquiao. And then we know the Tank fight. So those guys ain't really did nothing to be asking for multiple millions. Or for Stanionis. I see a lot of people giving Stanionis respect. So I'm looking at things, I'm like, wow, Stanionis is getting a lot of respect. I'm looking at his resume. That man has no big names on his resume. Most boxing fans don't know who he has on his resume. So he's getting a lot of respect put on his name. And I like Stanionis, but let's keep it real. He's gonna be judged like everybody else. For him to be getting this kind of money, come on now. What? What are we talking about? Are we serious? So yeah, we talking about everything that people were saying about Brian Norman Jr. definitely should have been said about this guy. He asked for a lot of money to make this fight happen. A lot of bread, and got it. So I think the narrative about, oh, well, Brian Norman Jr., man, just say it's a good fight you want to see. Because first of all, if Stanionis is worth this much money, it should be a lot more hype behind this fight. I'm hyped about the fight, but I can't make everybody else be hyped about it. But come on, man. It should be a lot more hype behind this fight. If Stanionis is making more than Boots, somebody got to make this make sense. Why is the boxing world at a point where Stanionis can make more than Boots? And that can make sense to everybody. With the resume he has. And the first thing people bring up is resumes and who don't deserve this much amount of money. First thing they said about Brian Norman was resumes and how much money he deserves. That's it. It's the first two things they said. Resumes, how much money he deserves. Oh, who has he fought? Oh, he just did that. That's all he did. What has Stanionis done? What has Barrios done compared to Brian Norman Jr.? To be demanding that much amount of money at 47? And we just got through saying that Terrence Crawford, what he did at 47 wasn't much. Well, not me, but a lot of other people saying that. And these guys are coming through getting paid more than Boots. Eddie Hearn said he had Stanionis won the lottery. He definitely won the lottery. He definitely won the lottery. Yeah, these are young champions. You still got to prove yourself each fight. I mean, Tank got to prove himself in a rematch against Lamont Roach. What you think these dudes got to do? You think they done showed up and arrived? Everybody got to prove themselves. We got guys in their 30s that got to prove themselves. So everybody not established yet. Everybody still trying to find their place in boxing. This would be considered, especially for Stanionis, his first real step up fight against a real competitor. Santillan was putting in a lot of work. I could technically say that Santillan was putting in more work than Stanionis. Technically. So for him to be asking for that amount of money is outlandish. That's why I was saying last year when he said the same thing Norman said, I was like, oh man, that's crazy. I said, so all these guys are saying this about money. But regardless of money, Stanionis told Brown that he wanted to fight though. Regardless of money. I'm just talking about the optics of everything. Whoever understands, they'll understand. Whoever don't, they'll get in their feelings about something. They went on in their feelings though when it was about Brian Norman Jr. So obviously they're playing sides, so they'll never understand. But I wanted to make sure I put this out first because I was definitely looking for this. That's all I was looking for. And what I seen last night was definitely not it. So the conversation about money was a dead conversation. Never supposed to be happening at all. Once somebody says I want to fight you in boxing, you got to make that fight happen. We talking about 500,000, an extra 500K or 300K in a championship fight on big networks, and it's a fight that has a lot of hype behind it. And all he did was ask for the fight, and everybody started getting hype. You know what I'm saying? So it's a real fight people want to see. So he can make the case right now that yeah, he should be probably getting more. But yeah, I can see how that happens though. Stand PBC, Boost not with PBC, so they probably like, hey, pay a little extra to make this fight happen. And it's just like, I gotta pay now or later, so let me go ahead and do it now. Because if he would have still been fighting, it could have happened. I know the real reason why the fight happened, but I'll keep that to myself later on. I'll keep that to myself later on though. But yeah, I had to definitely get this out here. I'm like, so all this talk about Brian Norman Jr. and the money he's asking for. Okay. And how much he's worth. That conversation is not gonna last for a long time. I told people that as soon as they start talking about, they said, who ducking? I said, nobody. I said, Boots or Brian Norman ain't ducking. Oh, okay. I'm like, what? I mean, you obviously not ducking if you're taking a pay cut to fight Stanionis. But like you said, I ain't know what was going on. Now he do. Hey, Stanionis said he want extra money. Cool, give it to him. Boom. I'm trying to be undisputed. That works. See, I can say things without trying to push a narrative, but if it sounds different, I mean, I'm okay with getting questioned about information, but it's gonna come out the way it's gonna come out, man. It might not sound good 6 months ago, but and this is actually worse than what I said. Because I never said that Stanionis was gonna make more than Boots. I just said that Stanionis wanted the same thing that Brian Norman wanted. But the fact that Stanionis is now getting more than Boots, this is worse than what everybody said Brian Norman was asking for. This is a lot worse. That narrative has to go away. I mean, it has to. After this happens, but I understand why all of it's happening, so don't really have no feelings toward it. Like, but that narrative definitely gonna have to go away because he's the first one. You can make the argument that Brian Norman Jr. kind of helped make this fight happen because Stanionis was not really making anything happen with Jaron Ennis until Brian Norman Jr. said something. That's when Stanionis said, "Oh, I'm trying to make this fight happen." They was already in talks already, but at the same time, it still helped. I mean, it happened right after that, and the man left PBC. You know, he's not a PBC fighter no more, so I mean that definitely makes sense. But this is a deal. Stanionis just got a deal that people said Brian Norman don't deserve. And I'm just telling y'all the truth. Stanionis has not done anything as far as on his resume. I looked through his resume and I watched boxing. I know some names on there, but that's not a resume that Brian Norman can hold up and be like, hey, I want to make more than Boots. If he holds up Stanionis' resume right now and says he wants to make more than Boots or he needs more money, somebody got to make that make sense. Because that's been the whole argument the whole time. And this the reason why I stayed away from it, because I'm like, two guys that been sparring each other, fighting each other for free, that don't want to fight each other, you can't make that make sense. They definitely want to fight each other, so something else is going on. Yeah, but Boots, he did what he needed to, though. Made the fight happen. But that's not my problem with everything. My problem is the narrative about Brian Norman Jr. being 23 years old, calling out Boots, saying he want to fight him. And people saying, oh, he asked for too much money. And Stanionis just got more than that with a worse resume. Centillion is a very good fighter. Stanionis doesn't have a fight on his resume like Centillion. Maestre is a good fighter, but better than Centillion? No. Maestre probably like Rocha level. But yeah, this let me know right now that Boost is super serious about getting this belt up off of Stanionis. But I don't know. Stanionis, I guess his team was like trying to put a number out there, see what they can do. But they made the fight happen, so it is what it is. But like I said, I definitely got to talk about this because every person I've seen, it's always like, nah, Brian Norman, he just want too much money. What has he done? He ain't done nothing. And I'm looking at Stanionis' resume and I respect behind his name, and I'm like, Stanionis a good fighter? Yeah, he a good fighter. Yeah, he a good fighter. But to the fact where he should be getting more respect put on his name than Brian Norman Jr., what performances can I turn on right now where Stanionis is jumping off the TV like Brian Norman Jr. is with knockouts over better fighters? And the guys he's knocking out is better than the best guy on Stanionis' resume. And he's knocking these guys out. Not going 12 and all this other stuff. So yeah, I'm confused behind that. But he definitely deserves but if you Stanionis and you've been in situations like with the Virgil Ortiz fight and um now you with the gave him my straight situation, you got the belt. Yeah, you definitely gonna wanna get a certain payday if you can. So yeah, it makes sense on all sides. I'm not complaining about that. Just wondering if everybody's gonna lay off of Brian Norman Jr. for asking for a cheaper deal than everybody else. The man asked for the cheapest deal out of everybody. I already knew it. He asked for the cheapest deal. It was the cheapest deal you can make. And if you're a person like Eddie Hearn, you're definitely gonna try to want to make that fight. If I was Eddie Hearn, I would have tried to make that fight first because he's younger, he's getting better as the days go on. Um, the fight is available. If Stanionis is trying to fight, you could have made that fight and then try to make Stanionis later on. It would have been good because Stanionis would have had no choice. He would have had to fight a mandatory, and the guy who's his mandatory was going to be he's a Eddie Hearn fighter, so the belt was possibly going to be over there anyways for Boots. So if things would have fell in place a different way, Boots would have already probably had the belt. But yeah, Stanionis had to pull the trigger on this. He had to. Because Barrios is not trying to fight him soon. He's looking another direction. And then you got Brian Number Jr. out here still. Then you had Stanionis mandatory coming up, who was not an easy fight. He actually fought the guy before. And he's an Eddie Hearn fighter, so yeah, he had to pull the trigger on this Brian Norman, Boots Ennis situation, try to get as much money as he can. Especially when he knows that Boots has other fights lined up, trying to get the belt. So yeah, you gotta do something like this on all sides. But yeah, they ain't got nothing to say about Brian Norman Jr. though. That's wild. Yeah, they just don't like the guy. It is what it is. I understand. I understand. Because with Stanionis, if you can understand why Stanionis got paid this amount of money, I know I explained it well, but don't try to take my reason now. Cause I ain't been hearing this reason for nobody else. It's gonna look bad, man. This news is gonna look bad. They're gonna try to walk around it, ignore it. It's gonna look bad though. On Monday, this gonna look bad. They already putting out fake news talking about some Jaron Ennis getting 2.5 and Stanionis getting 1.8. Eddie Hearn comes out and say Stanionis making more than Jaron Ennis. That's why I said Eddie Hearn will come out and tell the truth in certain ways. You just gotta listen. You got websites, right? That's why I tell y'all. This is why you have to listen to certain people and what they saying. You got websites that came out yesterday, early, fast, and put out news talking about Jaron Ennis getting 2.5 and Stanionis getting 1.8. Then Eddie Hearn comes out and says Stanionis is making more money than Jaron Ennis. Jaron Ennis had to give him extra money to make this fight happen because they were gonna try to go in another direction. Could Boots have waited? Yeah, he could have waited, but it would have messed up all the other fights he's trying to make. So that shows that he's trying to make the other fights happen that he knows of at this point. But yeah, PBC was going to go in another direction, but it was still an Eddie Hearn fighter they was going to fight. So technically, I think Stanionis didn't really want him fighting the mandatory. He already fought the guy. I think he lost to him. So yeah, he getting a big cash out. And like Eddie Hearn said, Boots is 10 times the draw of Stanionis. Stanionis is making more money than Boots. Trust me when I say Stanionis has won the lottery in this fight. So in the lottery, he's saying this probably ain't gonna happen for Stanionis again, as far as this much money. So Boots is confident in himself to say that he gonna get a bigger payday next time, and he ain't worried about the Stanionis fight and people trying to drag out fights. So yeah, he's close to undisputed. If he can fight Norman Jr. soon, and then probably Barrios later on, I think Barrios gonna be the hardest one to find as far as the fight because he already got another fight lined up. He usually have 2 fights lined up before the first fight happened. So Barrios the hardest one to get to, but yeah, they're gonna try to make this fight happen next. I think so. But yeah, Stanionis, he's gonna try to make it seem like he was gonna fight the mandatory. He ain't wanna fight that mandatory. I think the dude would have beat him. I had the guy beating him, so that's why I think he wasn't gonna take the mandatory. But yeah, this definitely makes Brian Norman Jr. Look good though. I told people. I said the man is not asking for that much money. When you look at it, people like, oh man, he made this much money before, and why is he asking for this much money? I broke it down. People like, oh, I don't understand. Okay, when it happens, you're gonna understand. You might not understand now when I tell you, but you'll understand when it happens. You'll definitely understand. They understand now. Cause I already talked about this years ago. Before Brian Norman Jr. Became a champion, I was talking about how much Stanionis was making. Where is it at? If they let me pull it up. I'm not talking about the Virgil Ortiz fight. They're talking about something else. I don't think that number's real anyways. See, I can't even talk about that because that number ain't real. As far as I know. But as far as the other ones, it'll just give an idea as far as what was going on. I'll just pull that up though. This is an estimation. It ain't really concrete, but it's an estimation. Now, if you look at this dude, this guy, we don't even gotta get into the resumes. But yeah. And I'm not discrediting the fight tonight. I'm definitely gonna watch it. It's still a big fight. I'm just talking about as far as the Brian Norman situation. That's it. Anybody who understands, they'll understand. But yeah. People saying, oh, he doesn't deserve this much money. He just made $100K his last fight or a couple of fights ago. He wasn't making that much money. Neither was this guy. Everybody says that Stanionis wants to make this fight happen. He's getting no backlash, zero. He's getting all the credit for making this fight happen. The man is asking for he basically was asking for more than what Brian Norman Jr. was asking for. And got it. Y'all gotta think about that. The only reason I'm saying that is because if Brian Norman Jr. would have got that deal, people would have said, because people was always already complaining. I told them, I said, bro, everybody's asking for that kind of deal and worse. Some of the deals these guys are asking for is worse. They want more money. This man made 50K, 30K, 20K. Really? And I'm gonna give you another example too. while I'm in here. You remember when people said, "Oh, how's Dana White gonna pay these guys?" The same way they was paying these guys: 50K, 30K, 20K, 15K. The same way. The same way these guys was getting paid. But yeah, everybody's not making millions every fight. They acting like Stanionis been making millions or something. That's why I said that whole argument about Brian Norman Jr. And Boots. It was a good argument though. You know, it was good for like promotion and stuff. Still a good argument. But this evidence kind of makes that, you know, not really a argument anymore as far as the pay and how much somebody deserves. I think that conversation it need to be left in like 2019 as far as what guys deserve and everything else. Now, like I said, we got extreme situations like with Canelo asking for 100 million, 150 million to fight one guy, but in this situation, yeah, this is extreme. Definitely extreme. I told everybody. I said, man, look, this guy's not asking for that much money. So now they got to sit up here and say, hey, man, why was Brian Norman Jr. getting this much money offered and people was complaining about it, but this guy made more than Boots. So he getting paid more than Boots. And I'm being nice about it right now, to be honest with you. So now is a good time to catch me. I'm just chilling on the topic right now. But when I hear somebody say something else about the topic, I'm gonna be like, huh? What? And I ain't even said nothing yet. Everybody done came through, like, oh man, I'm out. They don't want to hear the truth about that. So you already know what it is. I'm finna turn the heat up next couple of weeks. Just because when I mention certain fighters on, we want to hear that ducking stuff, bro. If I reach out to you, try to make a fight, I don't want to hear that ducking stuff. It seems like every time I try to bring up Brian Norman Jr., oh man, yeah. He looked like this. He asked for that. We can't even talk about Stanionis until this fight happened. I was talking about, let me tell you how G I kept it. I kept it so G. I was talking about Stanionis during the when they were talking about the Brian Norman and Boots negotiation. Now is the time to really talk about Brian Norman Jr. in this situation. What is this about? What is this about? And I want somebody to call cap on this with me. I want somebody to call cap on this. This is why boxing is in the rear view right now. You can put the truth out about boxing and get straight hate. This is why boxing in the rear view. Tell me one sport is where everybody can cap it and it's gonna be number one sport or the sport gonna grow. Come on, man. Like the capping in boxing is at an all-time high, bro. And this is an example right here. The cap is at an all-time high in boxing. We ain't got no truthful news coming out no more. Everything clickbait. They putting out fake stats online on official websites. They putting out fake news. You got people signing up for Jake Paul. People don't care about it. You got people more focused on old fighters than new fighters. You got people talking about prospects is knockout of the year. Bro, like for real. Then you got this situation. This is going to prove right here that everybody just wanted to be like, oh man, this dude don't deserve this much. I think I'm gonna save my energy on this one because ain't nobody even really even ready to have a conversation about what this guy deserves. He's coming off of making, I'll just estimate it to 100K. He coming off making 100K. People said Brian Norman Jr. making 100K. Okay, he's making 100K. Stanionis making 100K, and then he's going to making more than Boots because Boots want to make the fight happen. And like he said in the interviews, he knows what's going on now, so that's the way they made the number. So he like, hey, I'll get mine next time. Not worried about that. But as far as the news about what somebody deserve and everything, who said that Stanionis deserves this much money? I looked at his resume and I tried to look at it like I was like Stanionis is my favorite fighter. That's the way I was looking at it. I said, okay, if Stanionis is my favorite fighter, how would I explain how his resume deserves this much money, especially more than what Brian Norman Jr. asked for? And you can't explain it, to be honest with you. You can't. You can't explain it. You can't explain it. The guy, he just fought Maestre. He doesn't have that many fights. I think the guy has under 10 fights, if I'm not mistaken. And that was his best fight. It was a step-up fight. And it was a step-up fight. Is Maestre a good fighter? Yeah, he came to the pros late. I ain't stupid. He definitely came to the pros late. So I'm not dumb. Definitely a tough fighter. Was a warrior in the amateurs. Yeah, definitely fighting for his country. So I'm not stupid. But I'm saying that was a step up fight though. That's all I'm saying. So in the situation with Brian Norman Jr., I'm like, hmm. Everybody broke that down to a decimal. So I want to hear how this situation is going to get talked about. Definitely want to hear this one. And I'm not doing this to diminish the fight tonight or nothing. I'm just reporting the news, honestly. That's what this is big news, so yeah. This is definitely big news. Definitely. This is why I don't like talking about business in boxing, because when you got to report the real news about business, it don't come out the way people want. And some people gonna hate this. Well, they do hate this. Not gonna hate this. They hate this. A lot of people hate that I'm doing this, and I'm just reporting the news. I'm sorry, but I knew I was gonna do this though, because the purse. I kept remembering people said, "Oh, the purse." Ron Norman Jr. won a purse with Boots, a lot of money. So I'm like, why nobody talking about what Stanionis getting? I thought about that like 3 or 4 days ago. I said, I haven't heard anything about Stanionis' purse in this fight. Not one word about it. And that's been the whole topic. If anybody would think to do it, you would be like, hey, Stanionis making this much. He ain't asked for as much as so-and-so did. Because, people were still talking about how much Brian Norman was getting yesterday and the day before that, all week, this week. Which already shows that that's a more hype fight. Psychologically, they think that Stanionis is not as good as him. And they're not going to like this. But this is the truth. He's making more than Boots. The people who going to want to find it, going to take you a while to find it, but you can find it. But yeah, he's making more than Boots. It's a wrap. It's kind of crazy, bro. Yeah, they playing sides out here, bro. It's another example they playing sides. They definitely playing sides. That's why I don't explain a lot of stuff in boxing. I'm like, why? Boxing is full of a lot of cap. 99% of stuff talking about these days is cap. This is why people say, "Hey, this is my opinion." Yeah, but this situation with Boost is definitely gonna be funny in a lot of ways because the fight gonna happen eventually, but they ain't gonna like this as far as the turnout. They are not gonna like this. I told people, man, I said, hey, that first gonna Stanionis, he wants the same thing as Norman. Probably even more. This man got more than what Brian Norman was asking for. More. Probably by a lot too. But guess what? It's more than Boots. This man is getting more than Boots. It is what it is. But Brian Norman Jr., he asked for the cheapest deal. He's the youngest fighter in boxing. He asked for the cheapest deal that a champion could ask for in these days for a big mega fight. Champions versus champion. Boots Ennis. And Stanionis got more money than Boots. And for some reason, he looked at as a bad guy. And he don't want to fight. And he ain't ready. And has a better resume than Stanionis. Yeah, they know what time it is. But yeah, this is not a good look as far as the things people been saying because I feel like Brian Norman Jr. definitely deserves uh any amount of money that Stanionis. Yeah, a guy with 8 fights is the best name on his resume. Can't be getting more than what Brian Norman Jr. getting. I'm sorry. How is that even possible? And Boots? Man making more than Boots. Yeah, that's insane to me. They gonna have to figure this one out. This is why I don't talk about business in boxing because when the real news come out about it, they gonna try to look past it and be like, "Oh well, I don't care. Why was you talking about it all these months then? If you don't care, why was you talking about it so much?" This is why I did like little to no news on it because I'm like, when the real news come out, it's gonna look crazy. I mean, everybody gonna look past it, and I bet everybody gonna look past it. It happens over and over and over. They're gonna look past it, and the whole argument been what this guy does not deserve because of his resume and who knows him. Nobody knows. People know who Stanionis is. How? This man's name ain't been talked about like that. Brian Norman Jr. name been floating around ever since it been mentioned with Jaron Ennis more than Stanionis' name has. And Stanionis been at 47 for years. In the same playing on the same platform. Yeah, so yeah, that definitely doesn't make sense, man. This is why soon, the business, everything, everybody talking about the business of boxing. It's gonna go away soon. As far as people not knowing what's going on for years and years, that's not gonna happen because, to be honest with you, it messes up a lot of things. People will see the effects of it now, but trying to build up fights, it hurts a lot of careers, man. Building up fights hurt a lot of careers at PVC. They made some good fights though. But it hurt a lot of careers though. A lot of them. Because as you can see, a lot of people ain't selling like that to be just constantly building up names. It's really not that serious. We got so much internet and um so when you tearing down a lot of fighters, just like Brian Norman Jr., dude, the youngest fighter in boxing, having some of the most devastating knockouts at a young age, far away from his prime, comes out and say, I want to fight Jaron Ennis. Give me this amount of money. And then actually try to make the deal happen. Talking to him, well, nah, I was talking about this and this. And then Stanionis like, yeah, I want the same amount of offer he get. Yeah, I want what he talking about. I don't want to fight in Philly and I want more money. So technically, you know what I'm saying? But I can't really blame Eddie Hearn or Jaron Ennis because Eddie Hearn's not finna grab Jaron Ennis money and say, yeah, you have this. And so he wasn't gonna do that. And Jaron Ennis stepped in and say, yeah, just pay him the money, make the fight happen so I can get undisputed and move on. So that means he really trying to fight a champion each fight. So he really trying to make it happen. A lot of these other guys, they ain't trying to give up no money. I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of guys ain't trying to give up no money. And Jaron Ennis, he ain't been getting paid for years and doing the 1.2 million pay-per-views. So him giving up money right now, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. He definitely get credit for me for that one. It's a big deal. It's definitely a big deal. And that's the reason I would have to favor him in the fight. But yeah, as far as everything else around Brian Norman Jr., people gonna eat their words with that situation. They definitely gonna eat their words with that one. They gonna have to admit, man, I don't respect the facts, man. I like who I like. That's cool. I like who I like as well. We can't talk about the truth though. Oh no, that's just my opinion. Okay, bro. All right, man. We got all these facts going on, but we want to talk about some fairy tales, some fantasies. Like they be making things worse than what it really. It can actually be a good thing, but they want to talk about the unknown all day. Bro, all these facts coming out, and this is a big fact right here. I mean, how much shocking news can come out to the point where people just look the other way? And it's like, yeah, yeah. So this right here kind of proves that Brian Norman Jr. is a star. If this ain't a big situation over the next couple of weeks, this is going to prove that he's a real star that people just recognize as a star. Because most time in boxing, people dislike a fighter before they like them. Let's just keep it real. I can name about 10 fighters right now that's people call the best right now that most people didn't like at the beginning. So he's either a star or they're not looking towards this situation as a big deal. But this is a huge deal though. Huge. He got to be a star in boxing. I think he is. I think he was a very good prospect. And for you to be the youngest champion, yeah, with devastating knockouts. Yeah, this is it right here. This is a home run, man. So yeah, I'm definitely expecting that fight soon. I already had some instincts that the fight could be next if they wanted to, but we'll see, man. We'll definitely see. That's crazy. I understand why it got done this way, but because things moving so fast. And like I said, Stanionis, it's mandatory is a guy he fought already, so and he lost to the guy. So pretty sure he didn't want to step in the ring with that guy again. So he like, yeah, let me go ahead and cash out, get the money I can get. But I think he's still coming to fight. But I think the people over him was like, nah, we for him to fight a mandatory. But it just would have been longer for Boots. That would have been, if they wanted to rush everything. If they were actually rushing everything, Boots probably could be undisputed this year. If they were to do a fight with Norman next and Barrios after that, yeah, he could be undisputed probably the end of this year. If they were to do it fast, but if he was to wait until Stanionis fight is mandatory, it would have took longer. It would have took a lot longer, even though the guy's on the same side as him. But I think Stanionis was gonna lose that fight. That's why I knew last year. I said Stanionis got to make a move because he's gonna lose that fight. So I was kind of looking at Giazov to possibly fight Ennis instead of Stanionis. That's why Stanionis kind of stepped up. Ennis is like, yeah, let me make this fight happen. That's something people don't talk about, but yeah, that's the guy he lost to already. I thought about that so long ago, I forgot about it. But yeah, he lost to that guy though. It's mandatory, so yeah, him getting a big payday with Boots getting paid more. Yeah, he was gonna hold that belt hostage. Well, he wanted to fight Boots. We already know that because he wanted to fight Boots and um Virgil Ortiz, but he getting millions of dollars though. He getting over $1 million, and he ain't made that much before. We see how much he done made on the screen. But yeah, that's wild though. That's all I wanted to talk about today, man.